What's up, guys? This is Seville, here with another Power Rangers Lightning Collection action figure review. And as you can see, today I'll be talking about the original Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger. This figure is part of Wave 2, and over the last month or so, they have been popping up in Walgreens stores, and most recently, Walmart stores. However, according to Amazon, the official release date for Wave 2 is not until October 15th. Either way, to aid in your hunt, here's a picture of the barcode on the bottom of the box. And now, if you can give me just a few more seconds, I'll have this figure out of its package. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment below. And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Now that the Pink Ranger is out of her package, I'm going to let her have another full rotation on the spinner. That way you can see her all the way around. This is the first female figure of the Lightning Collection, so hopefully it does give us a good base idea of what future female figures will look like. So I'm going to get the bad news out of the way first. There's definitely some spots where there's paint errors, especially when you come back and look at the helmet. The way the front is so globbed up and not in the lines just looks terrible the closer you get to it. I was incredibly saddened by this, especially since it was the only one on the shelf. Another weird thing that the camera wasn't really picking up underneath my lighting is that the pink of the torso doesn't match the pink of the sleeves or the legs. At least not to the human eye. However, when I turn my lights back on, it does show up on camera as being the same shade as the rest. Another problem is the diamonds on the gloves and the boots. They're not spaced evenly. Sometimes they overlap too much, sometimes there's a gap in between. Overall, the quality control problems such as the paint or the loose joints have been the biggest issues with the Lightning Collection so far. If they could tighten up on these problems, this line would be near perfection. Another point of concern I've seen in these early release Pink Rangers has been the Kimberly Hart head sculpt. But, in my opinion, it's really not that bad. In fact, if you go and compare it to pictures of Amy Jo Johnson herself, you can see where the similarities are. The sculpt may not be exact, but to me, it's close enough that you can tell who it's supposed to be. Plus, the paint for her face turns out to be much better than the paint on her helmet. Next, I want to do a comparison between the Lightning Collection version and the Legacy version, but before I do, just one last look front and back and up and down on this figure. Plus, I might as well throw in a quick image of the actual Pink Ranger herself. And now with that done, let's take a look at both figures side by side to determine which aspects are better about each figure. Just a quick note, this is the metallic version of the Pink Ranger, so it is a little bit darker than the original classic. When it comes to the sculpt of the helmets, the Legacy version does seem to be a little more oval and slender toward the bottom, but the Lightning Collection was more rounded, which I do think that part looks better, but of course, the paint slop really messes that up for me and makes the overall appearance of the Legacy version look much better. However, the body sculpt of the Lightning Collection looks more natural, better proportioned, but then when it comes to the morphers of the Lightning Collection, I wish they were more pronounced like the Legacy version. The flattened and almost 2D appearance of the morphers on the Lightning Collection just really bugs me. However, I do prefer the Lightning version of the skirt. Similar to the shields or the white and green Rangers, the belt, skirt, and holster are all one piece that's an outer layer on top of the main sculpt. Moving down to the legs, they're actually quite similar in their overall design in that they have the same articulation points and same general concepts. But, much like with the upper body, I do think that the Lightning Collection looks more natural and has a better overall aesthetic. I do think that the way the Legacy Collection did the sculpted lines for the torso diamonds did help keep that paint straighter, because it's still not quite right on the Lightning Collection. Next, I'm going to compare the accessories that they have in common. There should actually be a silver arrow for the Legacy figure, but at some point I lost it, so I can't compare it. However, their primary accessory is of course the bow, which, on this side, they do look pretty similar to each other. But when you flip them over, there are some obvious differences, primarily due to the design choice. The Lightning Collection weapons will be designed to fit together to form the Power Blaster. In fact, if you've seen the SDC Red and Gold Ranger set, then you might have noticed that it already comes with a completed Power Blaster, and these pieces have been shown to come apart as the individual weapons. So while the Legacy Collection is more aesthetically pleasing on the underside, I am glad that the Lightning Collection will be able to combine together. I do think it's a little odd that each line chose their own forms for the Blade Blaster. The Legacy Collection only came with the closed-up version, while the Lightning Collection only comes with the open gun version. Between the two, I do prefer the Lightning Collection because at least in that form it can be used in displays. Now, Looking at her final accessories, she does come with the extra hands that are pretty standard for the Lightning Collection, plus the arrows. I really do like both of these arrows. The show kind of went back and forth between her using a solid arrow and an energy arrow, so it's really cool to see both in this set. Personally, I prefer the energy arrow just because it looks so much cooler than the solid one. I'm sure that the pose I have her in here will be pretty standard for my display. As far as scaling is concerned, she is shorter than the Green Ranger figure, which does make it accurate. And she does have a great amount of articulation to get into some pretty cool poses. In fact, let's take a closer look at all that now. The head does have a good range of movement up and down, as well as full rotation side to side. And to my knowledge, this is the first Hasbro female figure to have butterfly joints in the shoulders. In a behind the scenes video I watched on their official channel, it was noted that they wanted to be sure she could properly hold the bow and arrow. And these joints do aid in that function. Beyond that, the main shoulder joints do spin all the way around, as well as move outward. However, there are no bicep rotation joints. Also, the elbows are only single jointed, but they do have rotation to help make up the difference. Then the wrists are more standard, with the pegs for back and forth movement, as well as for rotation. The torso keeps the same articulation the Lightning Collection has been known for so far, with the ball joint underneath her chest, and the ab crunch at the waistline, granting a full range of movement leaning both backwards and frontwards. And finally, moving down to the legs, they have all the same common joints as previous Lightning Collection figures, such as ball joints in the hips, thigh cut rotation, double jointed knees, rotation at the top of the boots, and ankles with full pivot motion. So with all that said, it's time to run this Lightning Collection Pink Ranger through my guidelines for a complete and fair review. This is a brand new sculpt that is pretty well detailed and in scale with the rest of the line. It does have more than 20 points of articulation and balances incredibly well. It does come with plenty of accessories, and the roughly $20 price point is fair for the Lightning Collection. The primary problem with this figure is the quality control of the paint apps, which unfortunately I do think is bad enough to lead into problems with the accuracy as well. The only other problem will be that, like Lord said, she only comes one per case, so accessibility may be an issue even after the official release date, leading to a 7 out of 10 star rating, but that does mean she's still a pretty amazing figure that is worth owning for all fans. So despite its flaws, the Pink Ranger figure does still fit in quite nicely with the Lightning Collection. Therefore, I do still recommend adding her to your shelves. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video,
get over here!
And subscribe to Civilian Collectibles.